and welcome back to my channel. So yesterday I informed you guys that I would be doing a Q&A for the beginning / intro to every video I make. So every time I make a video, the night before, the day before, I'll go on my Instagram story and tell you guys to ask me things. And before the next video, or yeah, when I start filming the next video, I'll choose 3 or 4 of the questions that I received and answer them in the beginning. So we can do that like as a theme introduction to my videos, and that way you can ask me advice, you can ask for my opinion, or you could just ask something about me to get to know me, for if you have no idea who I am and you're new to my channel. Well, if you are new to my channel, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave a comment down below as well. So before we get started with the introduction, I would like to say and give thanks to all the love I received when I posted my first video. Thank you so much for all the support, and thank you for the feedback as well. And yeah, so a lot of you guys private messaged me and suggested that I do a video about mental health, mental stability, what I do to cope with stress, what I do to cope with my mental health in general, okay? I'm really excited to be making this video and share a few experiences that I have had throughout my life where I've found myself in the need of finding ways to cope with my mental stability. So yeah, so before we get started, let's answer these questions. So I'm gonna do 4 today, even though I know I said 3, I'm gonna do 4. And one of them was, what's a hidden talent you have that most people would never think of? I don't know if most of you guys out there have already noticed, for if you've visited my Instagram page, or if you're just a friend of mine who already knows, I play 3 instruments. I've played these instruments since like really young. It's been a few years since I played these instruments. I play the piano, I play the ukulele, I play the harmonica. Music kind of runs in my family. I learned to love music through my father. Several family members on my mom's side of the family are musicians, so I really love music. It's something that I've just learned to use to cope with when it comes to spending time with myself and giving myself time to just endure something in solitary. So yeah, so I play these instruments. I'm pretty sure they can't really be considered hidden talents because, I mean, they're just talents, right? I wouldn't say that they're hidden either. Ever since I started college, I have let go of practicing these instruments, but I always seem to go back to them. For example, now that it's still summer and I'm back from my trip and I didn't take any summer courses, I definitely did go back to playing music. It's more like a hobby as well. Second question I got is, what's your favorite book and why? I have my favorite book right here. I wanted to talk about 2 of my favorite books, but I really don't think I'm gonna have time to talk about them in this video, so this is one of them, and it's called Hiroshima in Memoriam Today. It's literally one of my favorite books. I will always say that this is my favorite book. So for those of you guys who still don't know me quite well, I'm all about nuclear non-proliferation, all about that whole topic in general. It has autobiographies of the survivors who lived through the World War II, survivors of the atomic bombs, and what their lives were prior to the war and their lives post-war. It's really interesting because this day and age, I wouldn't say that we're far from something like this happening, but definitely people are more aware of the aftermath of nuclear weaponry and what happens to the world and people when they're used. So it's a really big eye-opener, this book, because it really puts you in the shoes of those who survived. And of course we can only imagine what they endured, but at the same time it's good to have that perspective so that we know and we inform ourselves of such a topic that's very crucial, especially nowadays. But yeah, it's one of my favorite books, and it is written by Hitoshi Takayama. Okay, so the third question is, favorite Edith Piaf song? So I have several, and again, like, those of you who don't know me quite well yet, Edith Piaf is my favorite singer. She's my favorite artist. She's from the 20s. I grew up listening to her music, and my grandparents were a huge fan of hers, and her music isn't really for everyone. Her music is it's very emotionally driven. It's can be a bit sad, it can be a bit, so it's definitely not for everyone. Not everyone's gonna love her music, but I adore her music. I also learned to perfect my French skills through listening to her music, yeah. So my favorite song by her has to be La Gualande des Pauvres Gens. The reason why is because when I was little, my grandmother used to sing me this song so much. I guess like a lullaby, right? It's literally just a song about a person, right? But I really like it because it takes me back to my childhood and good moments with my grandmother, and yeah, it just brings back her scent and all the good memories that we've made. That's my favorite song by her. I have other favorites, but I have to say that I always go back to this one because of all the memories that it brings back to me. So yeah, so anyways, let's get started with the video. I was filming this video yesterday and I wasn't quite sure how to approach this topic because it's something that I've really lived through and have really thought through as well. And I was a little bit hesitant in sharing my personal experience with dealing with mental health issues because I mean, not everyone's gonna understand. Luckily, I know that I'm not the only one who's dealt with such mental health issues. I know I'm not the only one who's found themselves in a dark place at one point of their lives. And I just am really happy to see people talk about mental health, approach the topic of mental health, because growing up, I was surrounded by family members who were much older than I was. My parents are much older. They're old enough to be my grandparents. There was definitely a stigma in regards to mental health. Sometimes you just don't, when it came to my family, sometimes you just didn't talk about certain things. And more than anything, not because it was just a sign of weakness, but because they were just create a lot of awkwardness, and people in my family are very serious. People in my family are very dry, and they're not very affectionate either. I really just grew up keeping my emotions to myself. In high school, I was a pretty laid-back individual. I didn't really struggle so much with mental stability in high school. I was a kind of teenager where I really didn't care about much. I didn't care about my grades. I wasn't thinking about my future. Yeah, I wouldn't say I was irresponsible. I mean, what kind of teenager isn't irresponsible? In high school, I didn't really worry about much. It wasn't until the loss of my grandfather that my emotional state really just went downhill. So I was always really close to my grandparents. I would say that my grandparents played a huge role in raising me as well. Yeah, so when I lost my grandfather, it was really hard for me. I was 16 years old, I was still in high school. So I remember being very young and I didn't know how to cope with the emotional distress that I was going through. I was very sad. I entered a really big depression. I just found myself sleeping during the day and just crying up all night, crying. It wasn't a good time. It wasn't a good phase. My friends wanted to hang out, people wanted to hang out, and I couldn't find it in me to have fun anymore. One of the things that went through my mind when I was going through this phase, I remember having these thoughts in my mind about not wanting to, or not being able to picture living the rest of my life without my grandfather. So I'm gonna share quite a few memories that I've had with my grandfather. He was very much a second paternal image in my life. He was a very important individual and he was very caring. I remember when I was growing up just feeling really protected by him, feeling like he was my bodyguard basically, and he always really just took care of me, him and my grandmother. This one time I was like 13 years old, and so my family was really involved back then in like social life and events, and my grandparents were all about going to events and invitations and all that stuff. We were exiting the event. I came up to him and we were about to cross the street, and I grabbed his arm to cross the street, turned to me and said that I hope I live long enough to walk you down the aisle. That really just, I mean, I was 13, I was so young, so I was really not picturing my future, but I remember feeling wow, that would be so nice to do. That would be such a nice experience for me. So ever since then, it was something that I looked forward to as I was growing older back then. And yeah, I just thought it was so incredibly sweet that he said that to me. I was the only female grandchild that from his side of the family. So I wouldn't say I was spoiled, but I was the one who spent time with him the most, especially his last couple of years as well, because all my other cousins were much older and they had already moved too. So I remember just interacting with him a lot his last couple of years, and we were just very close. Every weekend we would go get ice cream. Every weekend we would go do something fun. They were just so fun to be around. Anyways, back to grandfather's loss. I was so emotionally broken, heartbroken. I found myself crying in such random times and places. And one time I really thought out very well what I was going to tell my mom, because I wanted to open up to someone, but she was basically the only person I felt I could trust. And I remember really thinking through what I wanted to tell her, because I mean, another thing is my mother is a very proper person. She's not someone I could just go up to and say something random. Like, no. So I really thought out what I was gonna say with such confidence. Soon as I walked up to her, I broke down. I started crying. I couldn't control my tears. I forgot everything I was gonna say. It just, it was embarrassing for me at the time. But my mother embraced me. My mother also supported me. She understood. She started wanting to take care of my mental health even more after that. So I'm really grateful that I had that experience with her. So one of the things my mother taught me while I was going through this dark phase in my life was there are 3 aspects that every person has to balance out in order to live a lifestyle that's healthy, in order to live a lifestyle where we are able to cope through the loss of a loved one, a heartbreak, or cope through trauma in general. And those 3 aspects are mental stability, spiritual stability, and physical stability. If you can balance these 3 things out, you will be successful in your life, and you would find it easier to cope through traumatic situations or cope with depression, cope with mixed emotions as well. So when little by little, she started explaining what every aspect meant and the value it held for our mind, body, and soul, which is ultimately what these 3 aspects represent. Our mind is mental, our soul can be spiritual, and body is physical. Maybe not everyone's going to be a spiritual person. Some people don't believe in spirituality, and that's perfectly fine. Everyone should respect each other. But I have found it easier to cope with the sadness that was brought to me through the loss of my grandfather, through my faith, just the knowing that there's life after death, knowing that in that life, after this one, we will be reunited with the people that we've loved the most, the people that we've lost, and that's just really brought me a lot of comfort. But I won't go into detail with this because not many people are interested in spirituality. If you are, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly the value it holds to yourself, to other people. One of the things that's important too is to find importance in people around us, because if we find importance in ourselves, we find importance in those who surround us. Obviously, we have to be surrounded by people who bring us up instead of bringing us down. There's always going to be someone who's going to try to compete with you. There's always going to be someone who's going to try to judge you and discourage you from doing the things that you love, and that is not fair. And if you feel like you're being judged because of what you're going through, because of what you're feeling and what your opinions are, then it has got nothing to do with you. If anything, it has a lot to do with the person judging you. It's really not about you, it's about them and what they're going through, and it has nothing to do with you. You shouldn't feel put down by the way you feel. So when I mean like a physical balance, I don't mean like finding self-esteem in the way that you look, right? Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, who doesn't like to look their best, right? Especially if they're going out, especially if they need to go to an event or if they have a job interview. I kept getting One of the questions I kept getting in regards to making this video was a lot of you guys asked me if I deal with insecurities, if I deal with self-esteem issues, if I deal with negativity towards myself, and those are really personal questions. But I feel like every single one of us in this world has dealt with insecurities, has dealt with self-esteem issues. I feel like every single one of us have also been put down or compared ourselves to other people, and that's another thing I would love to talk about too. It's like, ladies, when did all this competition start? Why do we feel like we need to compete with one another and meet a higher beauty standard and put each other down for not meeting that standard? It's just ridiculous. If anything, we should be encouraging each other. Our gender has been oppressed for so many centuries and so many years that it doesn't help that we keep oppressing each other in that sense also. I feel like it's really important that we bring ourselves up instead of bringing ourselves down. Maybe then we wouldn't deal with so much insecurity issues and we wouldn't fret about changing ourselves. Society has come to pressure us into changing the way we look, into altering the way we look, into convincing us that if we can change one little thing about ourselves, that we should, you know, whether it's through plastic surgery and all that stuff. Now, when I mean having a physical balance in our lives, I mean like taking care of our health, you know, avoiding certain habits that in the long run just affect our bodies negatively, doing good habits that nurture our bodies, and that way can nurture our minds, and just take care of ourselves overall. I don't mean the way we look, right? I mean from the inside, our bodies from the inside, because that's very important, that's very essential. Sometimes we give into bad habits and nobody is perfect, but if we can take care of ourselves now and not take our health for granted, that's just the first part in balancing our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. But again, like feeling like we need to change something about ourselves, just the little flaws that we detect about ourselves, that's not fair to us. That's not being fair to our minds. If anything, it's making us feel like there's something wrong with us, that we were made incorrectly. And that's not true. Each and every one of us are wonderfully and beautifully made. It doesn't matter. Like growing up, I used to feel so insecure about my little dimple on my chin, so insecure about it. And I don't know, now that I'm older, I definitely have learned to love it because it's a unique trait about myself. Far from thinking that we have to change things about ourselves, we should look in the mirror and learn to love our flaws, learn to love what we would consider defects, but in reality they're just beautiful traits about us that are unique. There's nothing more beautiful than the uniqueness of a person, and if we can take care of that, if we can take care of each other and our mental health of each other and put each other up instead of bringing each other down, the world would definitely be a much better place. I can guarantee you that. This is my TED Talk. I feel like one of the things that we should be focusing on the most, instead of changing our physical appearance, educate ourselves. We should definitely educate ourselves because our education is probably the strongest weapon that we carry with us the rest of our lives. And I don't mean for like employment, security, work, or meeting our career goals. I mean like educating ourselves, reading people's experiences, talking to one another, feeling empathy for one another. There's nothing more human-like than to feel someone else's pain, to see somebody else cry and feel like you need to cry as well because it hurts you that they're hurting as well. Part of that sympathy phase is really important too because it just reminds us who we are as individuals. One of the things that I really find value in that I haven't entirely done myself is seeking counseling. There's no shame in seeking counseling. There's no shame in seeking professional help for whatever small emotional distress that you're going through. It doesn't even have to be something big. Sometimes we just need someone to talk to. Maybe not someone that we know because maybe we don't feel comfortable, or we would feel more comfortable speaking to a total stranger instead of someone that we think we can trust or someone that is really close to us. I don't think that there's anything wrong with seeking counseling. I definitely understand it too because this past semester was very stressful for me in the sense where I was taking so many classes and I would say that I was procrastinating, but at the same time I wasn't procrastinating. It was more like the subjects for me were pretty like challenging in general. I remember like in April I had a lot of stress, I had a lot of anxiety because of my grades, because of what I was gonna get at the end of the semester, projects, final exams, all that jazz. It's really stressful. So every university, I believe, does have a counseling office where you can seek someone to talk to seek advice about what you can do to minimize your stress and for school and all that stuff, because I know that school can be just additional stress to whatever you might be going through in your private life as well. So never take your emotional stability when it comes to university for granted, because there's going to be a time where you probably are going to be completely discouraged in pursuing a higher education, and it should be the contrary. You should feel definitely more encouraged to pursue a higher education and not find school to be challenging. If anything, you should find school to be fun. You should find school as a way to enhance your knowledge, not something that would challenge what you already know. But yeah, so that's really important. Definitely take care of your mind when you're in school. It's not easy and it's better said than done, but if you do it, you will succeed. One of the advice that I have for any of you guys out there going through stress when it comes to school and meeting a certain criteria to get inside a certain program is do try to do your best in the beginning of the semester. Follow your syllabus. If your assignments aren't as valuable than your exam grades, and you might want to focus on your exam grades and not focus so much on your, well, obviously you want to do best in every aspect of your classes. Focus on whatever outweighs the rest of your grades. So if your grade depends more on your exams, try your best in the exams. But you know, if you could do best in your assignments and homeworks, then do that too. But start from the beginning of the semester so that you don't feel like everything's piling up in the end, like during midterms or even finals. So that's a tip that I suggest everyone to do. Now, how did I deal with the loss of someone? As you know, I am a literature major, so I write and read on a daily, especially during the school year. I remember finding so much value in writing. Writing really just, everything that I felt shameful in feeling, when I put it down on paper, just felt like a relief for me, because I feel like at one point in our lives we feel like a little ashamed of feeling a certain way, or a little ashamed of something that we might have done, something that we want to do, you know. Nobody is perfect, and it's fair to say that we shouldn't feel shame for any sort of feeling that we might have in wanting to do something or something that we did or whatever. So every time I felt a little embarrassed to talk about something, I always wrote it down, and I always found meaning and value in myself when I did, because when I read it on paper versus like actually thinking it, I just remember, wow, I'm totally not crazy. That's really important. I'd encourage you to write everything you feel down to. Definitely have a diary or a journal. I mean, it's nothing childish. If anything, it's very human and very therapeutic to do this. Like, just doing this video is itself very therapeutic for me. So definitely take that advice. And if you're not good in writing, go outside, do some kind of sport, occupy your mind. And here's another thing. A lot of people say, oh, if you're going through this, you take a vacation, have a getaway, a week getaway, or go somewhere far, or dig yourself under a rock. Just kidding. But yeah, sometimes people would say, oh, you just need a new experience abroad or whatever. And through my experience as traveling abroad, those things, they don't really help you cope with your mental stability. They don't, because you can get away and forget about your problems for like months, but as soon as you come back to wherever you live, it's like the problems start coming back again. I would refer to it as unfinished business. Whenever you have unfinished business, everything else just multiplies in your life. So if you were feeling sad before and you don't learn to deal with that business, you're gonna feel even worse in the future, because learning, like I said, learning to cope with your emotions, the first step is acknowledging the emotions you're feeling. Oh, and another thing that I would recommend people to really think through is pick and choose your emotional battles. It's not fair to you if you lost, like, if someone comes up to you and says, I don't want to be your friend anymore. okay, thank you. Like, let them walk out of your life. If you have a partner that comes up to you and says, oh, like, we shouldn't see each other anymore, like, they're doing you a favor. If someone breaks up with you, breaks your heart, next. But yeah, you don't want to be so emotionally dependent on someone as well, especially someone who's not a family member, because even with family members, it's hard to feel like you can fully be emotionally dependent on them as well. The person that you have to feel emotionally dependent on is yourself, because you're the one who entered this world alone, and you're going to leave this world alone. You don't leave with your parents, you don't leave with your spouses, you don't leave with your partners or a friend. That would be nice. I wish we could do that too, but not possible. So you're the one who has to learn to deal with your own issues. You have to really understand yourself too. You have to learn to understand why you're having reactions to certain things, right? So if you feel like something makes you angry, if someone says something that makes you angry, you have every right to be offended. You know what I'm saying? You have every right to feel angry if someone offends you, or if someone intentionally tries to disrespect you in any way. You have every right to feel offended. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge, why is my reaction like this? You also don't want to get back at someone for something that they said, right? It would be nice if you communicated your feelings with someone and told them what their comment or what they did made you feel. But you never want to seek social acceptance from other people. You don't, especially because right now we still live in a society where we're all, like, especially girls, like, girls are always competing against each other, and that's not healthy. Far from competing with each other, we should learn to understand each other. We should learn to help each other. We should learn to be friends with each other and just not feel intimidated with approaching someone because they're different than you, or you might feel overall just like they're not someone that you think would like you. It's not about that, you know? It's not about competition. It really isn't. That's not healthy. And if someone feels like they have to compete with you, it has absolutely nothing to do with you. Like I said before, it has a lot to do with them. And you shouldn't feel like you need to be involved in meeting someone's criteria or feeling like you have to be good enough for someone, because in all reality, you should know and be able to look in the mirror and say to yourself that you are enough just the way you are. And I do feel like the people you surround yourself with have a lot to do with that, because if you surround yourself with people who are only interested in you for what you have or for what you look like or for what you can do for them, that's not a good person. You deserve to be with someone or surround yourself with people who want you for who you are, who appreciate you for what you feel, for what you do, and just to love you overall as a person and not for anything materialistically. And you don't want any of that, because that's going to turn toxic, and if it turns toxic, it's going to affect your emotional health and it's not going to help you progress. So definitely learn to let go of those people who, far from helping you, they're just hurting you, and far from encouraging you, they're just disencouraging you. Because I mean, people are going to judge either way. If you feel like people are going to judge something that you want to do, then that means that you probably know deep inside your heart that they're already judging you. And I'm sorry, but nobody wants to be around someone who has a behavior that's absolutely atrocious. So do take care of the people around you, and don't take people who love you who really truly love you and have good intentions, don't take them for granted. Don't do it, because not only are you going to regret it, but you're gonna miss that. Because, for example, if you give someone a chance and they in the beginning show all these red flags, but you have someone else that's showing you not red flags and are showing you green flags, then that's someone who's going to be with you in the ups and downs. And that's something that each and every human being deserves. We all deserve to be around friends that are with us through the good times and the hard times. And another thing that's really good that we should really talk about is time and space. There is always going to be a time where we need to give each other time and space, and that's healthy. There have been times I've isolated from my friends, there have been times I isolated from my family, because I genuinely needed time and space. Because if you're not in a good place in your life, and you don't know how to deal with your emotions, most likely you're going to go around hurting the people that love you the most. So when you isolate yourself from those people, you're giving yourself time to learn to cope with your feelings. You're giving yourself time to deal with your emotions and understand your limits in what you say and what you do, because a lot of the stuff that we do, believe it or not, sometimes we're selfish individuals, but they affect those who surround us, and we don't want to hurt the people that are surrounding us with so much love, so much encouragement. So definitely don't take those people for granted. To conclude, if you're going through the loss of someone, if you're going through so much stress, if you're going through little things that you feel are affecting your daily lives, your relationships with your friends, your relationship with significant others, please seek help. I mean, I say it because it's good. You have nothing to lose. If anything, you have more to gain. There shouldn't be any stigma or any shame in counseling or seeking the opinion of someone who understands psychology, understands emotional stability. You never want to throw an opportunity of that away, especially if you're a college student and you are able to access all those things. Like I said, you have more to gain than to lose. If anything, you have absolutely nothing to lose. The thing that I should probably mention too is fill your mind with beautiful things. A lot of the times the things that we see, a lot of the times the things that we involve ourselves in make a sewage of our minds. And what we see, what we smell, what we hear, it all goes inside, and you don't want to make a sewage out of your mind. You want to make sure you take care of the things that you see, make sure that you take care of the things that you hear. If someone tells you something, stand up for yourself. Give yourself your own place. Know your worth. Know when to walk away as well. And part of emotional stability is knowing exactly who you're going to end up with in a relationship or a friendship or any sort of acquaintance. You may not be a person who's easily influenced, but sometimes people can be controlling, people can be manipulating, people can be possessive with you, and you don't want to get involved with those things because, like I said before, and it applies to this, if you are surrounding yourself with someone who is controlling, manipulative, and possessive, it has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with them, a lot to do with them, in fact. And you need to learn to set boundaries, because if you set boundaries, people are going to respect you. People are going to know, okay, this could be offensive to this person, this could mislead this person, and boundaries are very healthy for everything, even with family members. So do have boundaries, understand your limits. If you know that something is going to just anger you so much, set a limit to it. Understand your reaction, why you're going to react the way you react, and learn to understand that some things are just not worth fretting about. Some things are not worth dealing with either. Like, sometimes you'll have friends that show a lot of negativity to you, and believe it or not, you don't need to deal with that. So just learn to let go, because it's unnecessary tension in your life and you don't need that. If anything, focus on your goals. If you don't have any goals, make them. Make goals, make career goals or work goals. Or maybe even relationship goals or friendship goals. You know, if college, I understand college is not for everyone. I understand pursuing higher education isn't for everyone. So you have to learn to find goals in what you're already doing or things that you love to do. Maybe you don't know how to play a certain sport, but you want to be successful in that sport, so go for it, you know, because that's self-satisfaction and that's you working on yourself. So take care of yourself, because no one's going to take care of yourself the way you can take care of yourself. No one's going to love you as much as you love yourself. And surround yourself with good vibes. Let go of unnecessary tension, unnecessary stress. Let go of those who bring you unnecessary anything, really, because if you see that people are not helping you, people are hurting you instead of encouraging you, then say your goodbyes, because like I said, you have more to gain than to lose. So yeah, so this is basically all that I am able to talk about, because on a personal note, I don't know how far I feel comfortable in sharing with you guys, but do give this video a thumbs up. And if you have any tips that I am not aware of in learning how to cope with the loss of someone, and learning how to deal with emotions, and learning how to set goals for yourself as well, please comment down below and engage with one another in conversation. Let's spread some love, let's be happy with one another and encourage one another, because I want people in my channel to learn how we can bring each other up instead of bringing each other down. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't yet, and keep posted for my next video. Oh, if I can say, because I remember the beginning of this video I said I was going to answer 4 questions and I only answered 3. Okay, so someone asked me if I had a superpower, what would it be? I feel like if I had a superpower, it would be to be able to memorize things and learn faster than I could. Sometimes it takes me a while to get the hang of something. Sometimes it takes me a lot of studying to be able to understand a material, and I really wish that I can change that about myself. If there were some kind of superpower that would help me overcome that obstacle, then I'd totally have it. So I feel like that would be my superpower, but it would also be interesting to have a superpower that helps you breathe underwater or lets you breathe underwater and not just in air. So if that superpower exists, I would prefer that one over the one I just mentioned. So that's my answer to you. And yeah, so thank you for watching. Bye guys.